So I wanted to check out at least 2 movies this week.
You must choose. But choose wisely.
And I was going back and forth between a film called Shadow Force, which I hadn't heard of, and by the name alone, I thought would be sort of weak. There's Fight or Flight, which I did see, and you can check out that review on this channel now. And Julia and Romeo, which I kind of had a feeling it was going to be a dumpster fire. And then there was Clown in a Cornfield, and it was based on this book by Adam Cesare. Sounded great, scary, clowns, cornfields. It had a great response at South by Southwest, and directed by Eli Craig, director of the cult classic comedy horror movie Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. So I choose this movie. I'm so in. But
You chose poorly.
so Clown in a Cornfield stars Katie Douglas as Quinn Maybrook, a teen girl who moves to the small Midwestern town of Kettle Springs with her father, played by Abrams, who is the new town doctor trying to make a new life for him and his daughter after the death of his wife. Why they decide to come all the way from Philly to this nowhere town is sort of a mystery, but they move into the oldest, creepiest house on the market, settle into a town where they are most known for the factory that makes corn syrup and whose mascot is Friend of the Clown. Sounds like a perfect place to settle down. The father and daughter coincidentally come to the town the same week as the town celebrates the 100th Founders Day of the town and the corn syrup factory, where they have a parade celebrating not only the town and the factory, but Friend of the Clown himself. As Quinn gets to know the cool kids in town that the rest of the town think are troublemakers, strange, small jack-in-the-boxes show up throughout the town to the teens that are about to be victims of Frendo's wrath, the clown in the cornfield. Again, I was excited that this film was adapted from a book that is now a series of books until the film started and something felt a little off. The writing felt off, and the film made all the adults into these weird, outlandish characters, and the teens these cool rebel-like characters. It sort of felt like the reverse of Stephen King's Children of the Corn, where the small town had all the weird kids, but now it's the adults. So at that point I was thinking, okay, wait, hold on a second. This has to be an adaptation from a young adult novel, right? It has to be. It's got to be written for the 12 to 18 age group. And yep, that's exactly what it was. With the director of Tucker and Dale vs. Evil in the marketing that said that this was from the creators of Smile, I felt kind of a little misled here. But I thought, okay, cool. No big deal. I know what it is now. It doesn't tank the film because it's a young adult novel, right? I mean, you have some amazing films coming from those types of adaptations. I had no idea that young adult horror movies were even a thing. So, okay, let's go. The film has a pretty decent running start. It takes you back to 1991, where you see these kids at a bonfire party by the cornfield. One girl takes off into the cornfield while the guy she's making out with follows her. And I was enjoying the first scene until I realized, wait a minute, this is the first scene from Jaws, but in a cornfield. Like, it was a blatant, I guess, call out to Jaws, which at that point I was thinking, okay, I like the call out. Maybe this is going to be a good place to go here. The problem was that at the end of the film, I was wondering why that scene was even in the film. There wasn't any payoff to why the first scene was set in 91. It's mentioned, but it has absolutely no relevance to the story at all, killing the payoff. There's absolutely no payoff to the setup. And honestly, they could have had a better setup scene based off of the earlier story about the town instead of this much-needed setup that could have really paid off. They do this exposition dump at the end of the film where the bad guy has to tell the teenagers why he's doing all the terrible things he's doing before he kills the teenagers, like an episode of Scooby-Doo.
They've certainly wound up all the loose ends in this case. Blasted meddling kids.
I hate this type of writing. It's so lazy. If the bad guy was serious about getting rid of these teens, he would have just done it. Why explain all of his motives first? It makes no sense. It's because the film has to find a way to tell the audience, and it cheapens the movie. It's the laziest type of writing that there is. It's such a cliche, and I hate it. The scare factor of this movie is so watered down. It is pretty much absolute zero scares. The clown doesn't really pop out or use cheap jump scares, which is fine, I appreciate that. But there is no scary element to this film whatsoever. Nothing. Nothing was scary. Absolutely nothing. And I really felt like a crazy person watching this film. Thinking about the critical response it got at South by Southwest, everyone apparently loved this film. Of course, you have to think about how much of it was because the cast and director was there, the hype of seeing it in a full theater at a festival, lots of drinks, lots of drinking, or maybe I'm just crazy and have no idea what good cinema really is. I was actually watching Night of the Hunter before this and thinking, wow, that was an incredible film, and it was in black and white, and it was one of my favorite horror films. But then I thought, well, maybe I'm just really old. Maybe I'm too old for this film. The film does have some funny moments to it that felt a little like Tucker and Dale that I enjoyed. Like two teen girls trying to figure out a rotary phone, which is sort of an old joke, but it's still funny. It has some pretty clever humor to it at times, but not enough to save the film. The movie walks this weird line between horror and camp, and a safe horror movie for teens. It's a very watered-down version that feels like a made-for-teens horror book. At around the halfway mark of the film, it reveals a sort of plot twist, but doesn't tell you everything. But you immediately know what's going on when you see what comes out of the cornfield and who's behind the killing of these teens of the town. It's so obvious. It's a pretty obvious movie in so many more ways than one. It also paints a message about adults being too old-fashioned, hanging on to old-style, outdated belief systems. You can also make a case that it focuses on sort of conservative views over liberal views or religious beliefs over secular beliefs. It is trying to be very in-your-face about its message, and it's in no way subtle. The only adult who really gets any redemption is the dad who comes to his senses and becomes the cool dad in a town full of old-fashioned lame adults. Back in the 90s and 2000s, we had some pretty inventive, fun teen horror movies that still hold up today. I mean, they weren't the greatest movies in the world, but films like Scream and The Faculty, I Know What You Did Last Summer, which they are rebooting and has some of the original cast in, which I don't get it. I don't get it.
I just have one question. What did you do last summer?
But I feel like back then, even though films like The Faculty sort of did this teens versus adults theme too, which was much better and more fun. But of course, I wasn't as old as I am now and haven't watched that movie in a long time, so who knows. Clown in a Cornfield is not what I was expecting at all. This movie wasn't made for me or my generation, and that's fine, and that's not the reason that I didn't enjoy this movie. The story was very weak, and the writing not strong enough to keep me interested. The horror of the film is very watered down without any structure to keep the film moving in a solid direction. The cinematography was average. There was absolutely no real scares here. And it was just too obvious in its plot and plot twists. I'm giving Clown in a Cornfield 1 star out of 5 because it didn't have what I needed. It did have a few funny scenes that I enjoyed, giving it that 1 star, but I'm ready for this clown to go back in the cornfield, and hopefully they forget about Book 2 becoming a movie. It is rated R for strong language, some bloody violence, and some teen drinking. But let me know what you thought of Clown in a Cornfield. Let me know what your favorite teen horror film is and what you love about it. Thank you again for liking and subscribing. It means so much to the channel. And remember, don't wait till it streams. Let's go to the theater and let's see it together.